My name's Dayna. I've been around. I recovered. What are we doing here? 2011, October of 2011, and for this, I am. It's a miracle. And I was reading a little bit was reading how it worked. I'd certainly recommend it. It's Clarence's story. And there was this great quote here that says, for a nation, it's by Carl Sandburg, and it comes from Remembrance Rocks, page 19. And I'm actually reading it out of the book of the story of Clarence Snyder, how it worked. And it says, quote, "For we know when a nation goes down and never comes back, when a society or civilization perishes, one condition may always be found. They forgot where they came from. They lost sight of what brought them along." And like I said, I've seen the evolution of this group and this message, and from several different transitions. And there's one thing that that always gets me choked up. I always think of Dr. Bob. And of course, Dr. Bob left us with a wonderful concept of, and it's actually on one of my other big books, of the reason he does this. And I, of course, when I start to do things, I never go with what I planned. But one, why do we do this? A sense of duty. Two, it's a pleasure. Three, because in doing so, I'm paying the debt to the man who took time to pass it on to me. And four, every time I do it, I take out a little more insurance for myself against a possible slip. That's actually, when I measure what I would consider my spiritual fitness, is how am I doing with that right there? But it says that this last thing, the reason I wrote and this is someone who this is Michael K. August 2017, and this is the book he wrote about his sponsor. He said, "I made the reason I wrote this book was to fulfill a promise I made to my sponsor and to fulfill a pledge I believe in, which ends with the words, and for that I am responsible." I would not be here if it were not for the people that passed the message on to me. And, the thing about my sponsor, I had the same sponsor, miraculously, that I did back in 2011. And she's still doing what she did from the very get-go. Doesn't question it. And the thing, and sincere, and the value of this message out of this book. And I feel that we could just sum all this up. When I hear what they talk about being responsible, and for this, I am responsible. My job is not to sit here and tell you about all the great things that have happened as a result. I mean, I like to do that, because it was so horrible by the time I came here. So my job's not to inspire you with religion, or not to talk about, all the get into politics, or what kind of diet, or how much I weigh now. I mean, all of those things. I'm very blessed. My job solely is to take you back to this book. And the most important thing is, and I love how the speaker, Larry S. said, is all I care about is the black print in this book. That's my job. And it may bore the hell out of you. And I know it gets really great when, we get real in the floaty boaty of spiritual stuff. But bottom line, my job is to go, look, man, this is how we stay in this thing. And that's what I'm responsible for. The instructions that got me out of a mind that wanted me dead. That's just the truth. Sadly, I have a mind that would do anything, would make me look a certain way in a mirror, would say very horrible things to myself. It wanted to destroy me. And thanks to these principles and those that follow them and those that it was part of their purpose to pass this on, I'm here today. So I hope that translates in this presentation here. So this is actually a presentation I put together. It was for a group that I wanted to talk to. And so ultimately I'm going to get to, and by the way, was a little hesitant to have a presentation because you don't have to have a presentation. It doesn't have to be fancy. It just turns out that I've been, saying the same thing for, gosh, in October, it's going to be 15 years, but we're not there yet. It's going to be 14 years. I am celebrating. This is my 14th year. By the grace of God. Thank you. Anyway, you don't have to have a presentation. All you need is this big book and the black print. That's all the black print on these pages. I'm looking at them right now. But, just for X, I was like, all right, what does the American Association define as compulsive eating? And, it's good to look at the normies. How do the normies look at someone like me? And they say that, it's, and help me watch time here. Where's my phone? Here it is. Okay. It's an irresistible drive to overeat, in some cases as a reaction to frustration or disappointment. I wish it was that simple for me. I'm sorry, I'm not laughing. It's not funny. But yeah, for me, anyway, I could be happy, I could be sad. But I understand, they want to put a definition here, and there's a reference on it. Pathological overeating, emerging evidence for a compulsivity construct. Compulsive eating behavior is a transdiagnostic construct observed in certain forms of obesity and eating disorders, as well as in proposed construct of food addiction. Compulsive eating can be conceptualized as compromising feast states, habitual overeating to relieve negative emotional state, overeating despite adverse consequences. And these are stats, and these are kind of old, but I thought it was interesting. Eating disorders affect 9% of the population worldwide, 9% in the U.S. population. Okay. Less than 6% with eating disorders are medically diagnosed as underweight. Okay. So 20 to 74% of risk for eating disorders is through genetic heritability. Wow. Okay. Let's see. It's one of the deadly. Wow. I forgot about this one. Eating disorders, and this is from the it was a eating disorder nonprofit, and this has probably been updated. I did not. It was 23. Eating disorders are amongst the deadliest mental illness, second to opioid overdose, and something to consider there. Wow. We don't think of it that way, but second to opioid. Wow. Let's see. There's about 10,200 deaths each year. I bet that's changed as a direct result of an eating disorder. That's one death every 52 minutes. About 26% of people with eating disorders attempt suicide. 30% of people dealing with eating disorders have experienced sexual abuse. The economic cost of eating disorders is about $6.4 billion every year. So, again, that was from a eating disorder nonprofit, and that just the reality of, and that, again, that's stats coming out. Ultimately, I'm not sitting there thinking about this when I'm talking to that person suffering. I'm sharing my experience. Again, my focus is the black ink in the big book here. But this is what we understand from a 12-step perspective. And you can find this in We Agnostics. And what I'd be doing. So I probably would not jump to this just yet. So maybe I'd back up a little bit. But you and I would be talking about compulsive eating. I have met, I have driven to clinics. I have met people in restaurants. I have plenty of times over the phone. I have pulled over and leaned down to pray with people because I always pray with them, third step prayer. I have, stepped out in the car many, many times from parties, and I've actually had stepped away from a party and working with someone and had goons banging on my on the hood going, "What are you doing?" I'm like, I'm talking to somebody. And ultimately it's like what I was like and what happened and what I'm like now is how this thing goes, just very simply about that. We know that Bill, before he was trying to convince people initially to find God, and he was going, hey, he was finding drunks, and he was trying to grab them, going, you got to find God. And finally, it was Dr. Silkworth that said, hey, man, let's settle down. Let's not try to change people. Just tell them your story. And my story was, in a simple way, I started out not liking the way I looked. And I was able to convince my mom that this was back in high school. Hey, can I join Jenny Craig? And I joined it because I wanted to look like my friends, my cheerleading friends, and I am not a dainty woman. I come from Viking stock. And I, for whatever reason, I just wanted to be what I'm not. And anyway, I tried to fit myself into a particular mode created by me. And I was able to follow this diet plan, and I lost a lot of weight, and I felt, finally I've arrived. And it was the first time that I began to experience this out of control eating. And it was absolutely terrifying because so I had, it was like I'd held my breath for 3 months. And by the way, to be able to follow this diet, I literally had to, I couldn't do anything else. I was like sitting at the table, like waiting for the next meal. Because it was literally like walking against the Rio Grande River, or, the rushing river, or I can't think of a swimming against it, to be able to stick to a certain amount of calories, and way of eating. And eventually it was like the dam broke, and it was this horrible experience of, I can't wait to get ease and comfort, or I can't wait to eat, and then followed by the worst remorse on the planet. And boy, what a messed up relationship. And when they talk about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, it was that in my mind, because I'm sitting there just jonesing at the same time, crying because I'm abusing myself. I wasn't eating to nourish myself. I was abusing myself, and hated it and loved it at the same time. Golly, what a bad relationship. And so what happens is I did some geographical cures, moved out of Texas, started to do more exercise, started to change diet, and was able to moderate. But at certain times I would lose control, and I would end up hiding from my roommates in college because I would go eat. So what was funny in school, they were like, "You were such a good student." So I was like, "Well, I'm going to go to the library." Well, I wasn't going to the library to study. Come on. I was going to the library to eat without being caught. So what ends up happening is I end up, because I would do this, I would build up a structure around me, and usually that structure around me was built on being validated by other people. For whatever reason, there was a hole in my heart and my soul, and I felt like, and that was this power that they talk about, and ultimately, I was seeking outside validation. So I would do everything to get validation from you, and then I knew I was a fraud, and so I'd crash it over my head. So I ended up quitting school. I mean, I was in Colorado. I mean, I had a wonderful opportunity. I ended up moving back to Dallas, quitting college, and my eating was pretty out of control. I was actually referred to 12-step through a psychic, and I ended up spending a lot of years. And so OA and Al-Anon were actually CODA were my first 12-step fellowships. And then gradually I'll end up going here, there, and everywhere. And I still struggled with my eating, and I will end up about 16 years into my first approach to recovery. I end up hitting rock bottom because I started to weigh and measure. And long story short, it was through weighing and measuring that, so I hit another bottom, and I couldn't stop from weighing and measuring my food, and was on again, off again. And eventually, and I'm going through this pretty quickly, trying to get everything in here, but eventually what happens is I stumble upon a group in Dallas, and the Primary Purpose Group. And I remember at the time, so a couple of things. It was a relationship, and I don't know if I'm being hard to follow here, but so I ended up through a psychic getting to 12-step, and I did like everything anonymous. And then I was introduced in Seattle to the weighing and measuring groups, and it was actually there that I hit bottom. And it was through weighing and measuring that I discovered how powerless I was, because I was just so obsessive. And thank goodness for this relationship that I wanted to kill myself after it ended, because on that night I stumble upon Primary Purpose Group, thinking that I'm going to a foundation meeting, and I was in a big book study, an Al-Anon big book study, and that sponsor referred me to the sponsor I have today. And I at that time, I was a member of the OAPP. No, this is before I started working with Robin. I was a member of OAPP. I'm not sure how I got there. I forget how I ended up there. So I was familiar with Primary Purpose Group, and I was going to meetings with Cliff. And he was this old, I was like, who is this old crotchety guy? Because OAPP sent me to those big book studies, and and he would always show up in a suit. And anyway, So stumbled, was able to get with Robin. And I had been sponsored by Joni at the time and helped me understand the problem. And this is part of the history of our fellowship. And eventually I would start working with Robin. And that's when I finally recovered and I moved to Houston. And when I moved to Houston, we had, at that point, I was coming up to Dallas every other weekend and learn some things there. Every other weekend I'd come up and I'd follow Robin around. And through that transition of having a virtual protege and a face-to-face protege, we ended up starting the Saturday night meeting that was virtual and face-to-face at the Oasis Center in Houston. So with all that being said, coming back from a 12-step perspective. And a 12-step perspective, I would share what I did in my eating. And they tell us in working with others that you ultimately, if this person is, in a good mood, you are too. Or not, I mean, you don't have to manufacture that, but if they're joking and stuff, hey, yeah, we kind of joke together. If they're a little bit more morose, you meet them there. And the purpose is, I guess it's a matter of kind of going where they're going, because we're trying to find that resonance. And to see if in that resonance, and when you have it, because what starts happening is you start talking and then that person starts nodding their head. I did it. And they start going, yeah, man, I know what that's like to basically alter your entire life around your eating and the hiding and the loving the eating and hating the eating and looking at yourself and hating yourself. So from a 12-step perspective, at some point when I'm having that conversation and they're nodding their head, I'm going to ask them, and this is in We Agnostics, if when you honestly want to, can you quit entirely? And that is going to determine the mind, and we'll talk about that. Or if when compulsively eating, you have little control over the amount you take. So do you lose control? Have you ever said, I'm never, ever, ever going to do X, Y, and Z? And you did it anyway. That be the case, you may be suffering from an illness which only spiritual experience will conquer. And the thing about us here is that they tell us that we're like passengers of a great liner. The moment after rescue from shipwreck, when camaraderie, joyousness, and democracy pervade the vessel from steerage to captain's table. In like the feelings of the passengers, however, our joy in escape from disaster does not subside as we go our individual ways. The feeling of having shared in the common peril is one of the most, is one element in the powerful cement which binds us. But that in itself would never have held us together as we're joined now. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out we can absolutely agree, and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. And that's the big book. So common solution. So when we have discovered a common solution, that is on the other side of a common problem. And what is important to note, and this, when I mentioned I was part of OAPP, and we definitely want to give props to, because we stepped on the shoulders of Overeaters Anonymous. But within Overeaters Anonymous, we had some members of the OA primary purpose group that helped us understand the problem. For the first time, many of us thought that it was a substance that triggered us to do things. And we're not saying that these substances, do not have negative effects. things like sugar, things like gluten for me impact impact my thyroid in a negative way. Peanuts. And the great thing is I can save foods and people don't have to worry about being triggered. But my point is that there may be people that have problems with those things, which is a different problem. And if someone is solely worried about sugar after we've sat here and talked, hey, if that's your problem, then I will get you someone who has that problem. The thing about me is this thing called compulsive eating. And what that means is, and I experimented for many years, especially with weighing and measuring food. I would remove substances from myself, and I would still eat compulsively. And that is because I would chew gum compulsively. I sponsored people that compulsively chewed ice because it turned out that I had a mind that was obsessive and a body that would get ease and comfort when it came to eating in a compulsive manner. And it didn't matter what the substance was because I ate pristinely, but I was still eating compulsively. So we learned about that. The illness was understood. And from OAPP, I think that was 2006, if I remember the dates, when they came together and a couple of food addicts came down to Dallas and I know Cliff, and there's all sorts of stories you can listen about that. And Cliff helped the problem, or he was not a compulsive eater, but he helped through that experience understand. From that, we understood that we were powerless over compulsive eating. And then OAPP went into PPGOA. I was a part of that too on Sunday night. And then the Big Book Solution Group, through sponsorship and focus and wind up joints, we branched out on our own for Saturday night, and we started the OA Big Book Solution Group. I wanted the meeting to be called Spiritual Principles. And what was funny was that my buddy, and I saw my buddy just recently, she came into town and it was great. We had lunch together, but it was my buddy that I had created an email. It was like, ooh, big deal. I was like, oh, I'm serious now. I have my own 12-step. And I wrote BBS Solution 164 was my email. And anyway, I had emailed her the 4th step. And so I'm sitting here thinking like, oh, we're definitely going to be called Spiritual Principles. Of course, I was like, oh, yeah, it's going to be that. And then Karen in the middle of it goes, well, what if we came up with the name like your email? and I was like, oh, darn it. And but no, it's a great name. And so we came up with the Big Book Solution Group. And anyway, we understood our problem was compulsive eating. And, but there was a little issue, and I'll come back to that. But on the bottom here, it says Dr. G. Kirby, psychiatrist, and this is in the back of the Big Book. He said, I have felt that AA is a group unto themselves, and their best results can be had under their own guidance as a result of their philosophy. Any therapeutic or philosophic procedure which can prove a recovery rate of 50 to 60% must merit our consideration. That's the Big Book page, the Big Book AA, page 560, 69. And that's ultimately it. Through this experience, we understood, and there are folks that are like, yeah, I do this thing compulsively. Yeah, it doesn't matter what the ingredient is. And eventually I'm going to lose control because I can't stop from leaving it alone. Did anybody do this? I was so restrictive with my eating. And I would always get twinkle toes. You know what that is? I call it twinkle toes when I finally it's the way I'd be like, la la la. It was so egoic. And people noticed when I was weighing and measuring food, they noticed and they would give me compliments. And there was a point when I'm weighing and measuring and people are like, wow, you've really thinned out. You look great. And I remember saying to them, no, it's horrible. This is horrible. You don't want this. I mean, I was like, I sit there all day long weighing and measuring food. And so people would be like, what do you? And I don't even ask because I mean, I knew that the normal person would never do this. So it wasn't like, oh, I've started cutting out carbs or doing carnivore. No, it was like, no, I have altered my existence to try to, so Twinkle Toes was like, yay, I am so skinny now. I'm going to get everything I want. And as a result of following these principles, I have been able to keep the same dress size for it's so crazy. And so I did balance out, and I remain, and I'm healthier. I'm so blessed. I really am. I'm so blessed. But I don't have twinkle toes today, where I'm like, look how skinny I am. I'm neutral, completely neutral, and I will take that any day. I had dysmorphia, and it's just one of those things that I still just kind of go, all right, let's not get nuts in the mirror. And so it will rear its head like, oh gosh, and I start like doing the negative talk, and I go, okay, I know this isn't real, and that's where the 10th step comes in. So it's not like I don't have those days where I go, golly, I look like I got hit by a baseball. But anyway, but and then I go, okay, let's get connected. We know I'm very grateful that as a result of working these steps, sanity has been returned. And when those words start, I wanted to never have those thoughts ever again. And for the most part, I've forgotten about them, but sometimes they do. And I just go, oh, there. It's kind of like having an old injury and it comes up and it's like, the weather changes and you're like, oh yeah, there's my knee kind of aches. Sometimes that happens. But again, by the grace of this power, I know that it's just part of my illness, and I'm very happy about that. So, all right. So what happens forward to the first edition? So usually a lot of us do foundation meetings. We like to teach people how to do that, to keep you focused on the most important thing, which is this black print. That's the most important thing. It really is. Me telling you about, hey, I'm so glad that I'm at a healthy weight, and those are great things. But still, what's really the crux of the success here is that I wake up and I'm back at this thing. Before I recovered the second time, and it stuck, I was always trying the next new thing, and trying the next new thing never lasted. And so the best thing is, and as I'm thinking about this presentation, I'm like, well, I want to have a different presentation. I need to update it. And, of course I got busy. I didn't have time. Because then I think of, well, I want to entertain the audience because they're probably sick of hearing me. I'm like, be safe. Same thing. That's a merit. Great. Good. Because it works. And my job is just to tell you what happened and how I got there. If you want to be inspired, I don't know, listen to some music or something. But that's kind of my point is, this is what I'm responsible for. So they tell us in the foreword to the first edition, and this is the foreword as it appears in the first printing. So we refer to this a lot of who the authors are of this book. So we of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. They're telling us what the problem is. This is going to get us to step one, to show compulsive eaters precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. And for them, we hope these pages will prove so convincing that no further authentication will be necessary. We think this account of our experiences will help everyone to better understand the compulsive eater. Many do not comprehend that the compulsive eater is a very sick person. And besides, we're sure our way of living has its advantages for all. Did anybody really understand you? And that's the hard part about normal people. Is one, they don't understand the depths of what I'm going to go to. And normal people, and it's no shame on them, normal people are like, well, just don't do that. And my thing is, it's not just the eating. It's all the control, all the worrying about what people think of me. All of that precedes. That's my spirit before I'm even eating. I want validation from other people because I don't have it within myself. That's what that comes down to. I am like, I don't feel okay, and I want you to make me feel okay by telling me I'm okay. That's what I mean. So all the other losing control and stuff, yeah, that sucks. But it's living the day-to-day inside Dayna. That's the part that's just horrible. And so the consequence is I go to eating for ease and comfort. And then I try to control the fact that I do that. So I'm playing whack-a-mole. I'm sitting here having car trouble, and my car is not starting, and I keep, instead of understanding what the problem is, I keep changing the color of the paint and changing the tires and putting stripes on the side, going, oh, this is going to fix it this time. I'm going to change the color from black to white this time. And then I'm going to be okay. And then I'm going to put some fire things on the side of it. Now I'll be okay. Gosh, I still can't get this car to start. So it tells who the authors are. And this is an important part. This is XXV. I think that's the fourth edition. So they're going to tell us, and I want to get to the important part of, I'm watching time. What's interesting, this is the only paragraph that really goes into the physical part, and there is so much more in the book. But it tells us that we believe, and so suggested a few years ago, that the action of alcohol in these chronic alcoholics is a manifestation of an allergy that gets all of us freaked out. Oh my God, okay. The phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never occurs in the average temperate drinker. These allergic types can never fully safely use alcohol in any form. Once having formed the habit and found they cannot break it, once having lost their self-confidence or reliance upon being human, their problems pile up on them, become astonishingly difficult to solve. What we're talking about is a phenomenon of craving. This is the physical part. And I'll show you this diagram that I usually write on the board in front of people. Phenomenon of craving means that, and this is going to get us into our step one here. So that's the body. And really this whole presentation, and this I draw on the board. So you don't have to have a PowerPoint. In fact, it's probably better not to, because we're just talking. But that little part in the book is dressed. So we have a 2-part illness here. So by the way, we were part of our previous group that we were part of. They felt like they're powerless. They were powerless over food. We eventually, being a part of that for 14 years, and we were very, very grateful to them. But it was kind of one of those things that we were constantly pushing against. And we're celebrating our first year. And congratulations to my friends here. There will be a time and place, believe it or not. I mean, if God continues to bless us. I was reading again how it worked. It's a great book. The history of AA number 3. But in the intro, they were talking about that one of Clarence's proteges was talking about how he was referred to Clarence, and someone said, this is the last of the first 100. So those of you on the phone line, those of you that came over, there will be a time. I don't know how soon, but if we keep focusing on the black part of the book, the print, focusing on that part of the book, those are the instructions. What I mean is the instructions. There will be a point where someone goes, hey, this is the last of the first 100 that came over from OA and started a fellowship and said, hey, you know what? We're going to stick to the big book. We love you. We appreciate you. And we're going to go on our own here. And we're going to, and there will, if you haven't thought, I never thought of that, because I'm just here doing what I did and blah, blah, blah. But there will come a day. I don't know who's going to be the last one, because basically about 100 came over. If you don't know what I'm talking about. So there are definitely some phases. Oh, hey. I don't know why you guys showed up. So there were definitely some phases that happened in our work. And by the way, this part of the presentation is really what differentiated us in sponsorship and wind-up joints. So there are some really important parts along this 14 years of existence, and one was the illness being understood. And again, OAPP, PPGOA, the Big Book Solution Group out of OA, the OA Big Book Solution Group. And so finding that is the illness. I wrote down the illness is understood. And then we had all these years of carrying the message, and we had in wind-up joints, and we'll talk about the commitments if we, I need to book it here, so I'm going to move quick. We had the Saturday night meeting come up, Saturday night line by line, and then we started the foundation meeting. And then retire at night meetings were started from that to teach proteges how to carry the message, which I'm doing right here. Then the Big Book mornings came in, and then we've had all these wonderful offshoots. And we were around 10 o'clock, at least my time, we were all sharing stories. We were doing that on the main OA line, and then other people picked up things, and you know what, this thing just came about. And I remember thinking, blessings to the people that were our trusted servants during the time that we were transitioning out of our previous fellowship, because it was kind of scary. But my point on that is that that I remember thinking in my own mind, I remember thinking, I bet there's going to be about 30 people that come over. I was like thinking in my mind, and I was talking to others like, hey, is this time? I was talking to my sponsor, talking to advisors. Is it time to move on? Being that we took a sincere look and in the traditions, and a sincere, we had to decide either we're going to promote other literature, or we're going to need to go on our own. And there was more to it, so not to create controversy, but literally it was just time. It was time to do it. And I remember going, okay, I know this person will come over. And I was like, because I'm sitting there going, and I'm like, all right, 30's not bad. And then to find, we had triple that. That's crazy. So let's keep doing this thing. Okay, so this is what we learned how to do, is carry this message right here. So we're talking about step one, and step one is going to tell us that we admitted we are powerless over compulsive eating, and our lives have become unmanageable. The first part of step one is diagnosing the body. And in the body, so the body of a compulsive eater, and we read about the phenomenon of craving. So there's this abnormal reaction that happens, and it's behavioral for us, different from a substance. And with a body, my body is abnormal and I get this loss of control. So when I am eating in a compulsive manner, I'm not eating to nourish myself. I am eating for ease and comfort. And the thing is that if this was the only problem, then following the diets and the meal plans would have worked. But when I mentioned that my mind was really the problem, that's because I have an obsession, and an obsession I'm not going to be able to fix with my own brain. And when I have an obsession, I always compulsively eat, even when I say I'm not going to, and that's part of insanity. And and so this is a cycle that goes on. This is what precedes that first bite. I'm not gonna lose control if I don't have an obsession, because the control stuff is going to work. So, showing you this little cycle here. So what happens is I make resolves, and the type of resolves that come about are things like, so first I hate myself because, I have done what I said I'm never going to do. I told myself that I'd never eat fast food because it's disgusting in my mind, and it's the worst thing ever. And when I found myself going I had an hour and a half drive. When I found myself going gas station to gas station and fast food to fast food, eating everything in sight, I was crying. I was like, I cannot believe this is going on. And believe me, that was remorse and guilt. That was the last binge. And so from remorse and guilt, without the solution, I would, tell myself, okay, on Monday, we're going to start the new fasting program. I'm going to get bypass. I'm going to go vegan. I'm going to take some methamphetamines. I'm going to go to a nutritionist. So I would make firm resolutions. And when I would try to follow those firm resolutions, my spirit became very abundant, very clear that I was restless, irritable, and discontented. And I like to, this was, again, an old presentation that ultimately, oh, well, maybe not this time. Hold on. I'm going to skip on. This is a roller coaster. So that roller coaster we'll come back to. But why do I do these things? Is for ease and comfort. And I don't know if I can hone in enough, but I put all these in here. Like, why in the heck do we do what we say we're never going to do for ease and comfort? And that's our step one, that we admit you're powerless over compulsive eating. And so I like to use the roller coaster analogy, that ultimately the mind is, that slow ticking. So when we lose control and people are like, I don't know what happened. Well, it's been happening. There's been this slow ticking. So the mind is very quiet on things. When the body takes over, that's when it's like, we lose control. And when we have this problem in diagnosing step one, you admit we are powerless over compulsive eating. That's diagnosis over the body. Do you lose control? And that's being powerless over control. And our lives have become unmanageable is what that means is I'm not able to manage the decision. I say I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z, and I do it anyway. And that's our step one. And we borrow it from the big book, and we replace the word alcohol for compulsive eating because they tell us that this has its advantages for all. Now, I like to, when we have the obsession, I like to draw this on the board too. And, as I'm doing this, I took time to talk about my story. And when I'm face-to-face talking to people, I draw this. And I do this on the phone line too. But I talked about, remorse and guilt is basically how this thing starts. I hate myself. And we make firm resolutions. And firm resolutions, what happens, it's like holding my breath. And because I have a spirit that is restless, and another way of saying restless is uneasy. I have a spirit that's irritable. That means I'm easily agitated. And discontented means I'm never satisfied. So my mind's going to lie to me. So when I make these resolves, I'm going to start getting, the temperature is going to start increasing. And eventually my mind's going to lie to me and say what that eating is going to do for me. And I'm not going to remember what it's going to do to me, which is remorse and guilt. And so this is the mental blind spot. They talk about the mental blind spot. Here it is right here. And when we recover, so this is lack of power right here. I have this little space in my brain. That's like when we have an obsession. That's why this is exactly why these things don't work, because resolves don't work, because the problem is not the substance. The problem is not the fact that I just ate 3,000 calories in one sitting. It's lack of power. So when I get some power, I'm going to be restored to sanity. So, and from that being restored to sanity, that's really going through step one. And based on time, we can, actually, I'm going to leave it there. Let's go back. That's a great place to leave it. So this is our step one. Step two is about hope. And from there, we have step three, which is turning over our thoughts and actions. We're going to do an inventory. We're going to talk about it with our sponsor. And then we're going to, in our step six, we're going to be ready to hand these up. And then eventually what's going to happen is, nope. And then what's going to happen is in our step seven, we're going to recommit to what we did and say I'm all in. And I'm kind of going quickly through it. And then we're going to make a list of people we harmed, and we're going to be ready to approach those people. And then we're going to continue to grow in these principles. And I want to, through 10, 11, and 12, so 4 through 9 on the daily, prayer and meditation. And then part of neutrality for me is carrying this message to others. So I want to read this one part. What happened? It says, this is from the big book. Our story discloses in a general way what we used to be like and, what happened. And Clarence writes, there have been millions and millions of alcoholics stagger the face of the earth. They have lived and died in alcoholism. They have died. They have carried down in disgrace families, friends, and associates with them. They have caused carnage in this world, and they have died hopelessly, and it's been a tragedy. Out of all these millions of people, therefore, why? You tell me why just a few thousands of us have this opportunity. Why are you chosen for this? Why am I chosen for this? Why did I get this chance? Why did you get this chance and thousands and millions of other people never had this chance? And there are probably millions around who never will or never shall. Ask yourself this sometime. It might put a new value on your membership here. These things are things we ought to check ourselves with once in a while. I think it's a miracle that any of us are here, because no one ever gets here until he is hopelessly lost. So that sums it up perfectly in my mind. And I hope I honed in what our job is to do. Let's just keep it simple. Let's stick to this book. And let's just keep finding that person, and let's keep this thing going. So we at one day that there's going to be someone go, hey, that's Susie S over there. She's the last of the 100 that started this thing, back in the day. And I'm going to ask her to help me. So All right. With that, we're going to close up because it's time to do that. And I'm going to have to do all the host stuff and I'm going to stop the share here. So thank you all so much for being up and being on this thing. Oh, we got the European people. Hi. And okay. And our loyal people. Thanks for being here in the middle of the night. So in closing, every CCA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. Contributions can be made directly through our website via PayPal at chroniceaters.org/contribute. If you'd like to learn more about our meetings, please visit chroniceaters.org. So I do want to say that faith has to work 24 hours a day in and through us or we perish. And page 357 says, no one individual can carry all the burdens of the world. Everyone has problems. Getting drunk won't solve them 24 hours a day. Today is the day. In closing, page 164, our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who's still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But you obviously cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is a great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. So we're going to have, and don't pause. Okay. So I'm going to, let's have a moment of silence for the compulsive eater. We're going to follow with the Lord's Prayer in our usual manner, or a prayer of your own choosing, said in silence. So who loves us and keeps us sane? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Thank you all again for letting me do my life necessary 12-step work. So know that you're all loved in a very, very special way. All right. Good night.